that when you're a pedestrian, first of all, you get relegated to the bottom of the social pile. Like literally the minute that somebody steps into their car and they are behind a steering wheel, if you are a pedestrian anywhere near them, they suddenly are at the top of the food chain. You had better jump for your life out their way, otherwise they could ram you down. Okay, like that might seem a little bit dramatic, but you know, I've had students, some of my students walk into my class and say, oh, I just nearly got hit by a car, or I actually did get hit by a car and then I just walked away from it. And I'm just like, what? You know? Hey guys, I'm Tasha from Travelandtash, and I'm sure most of you are aware that I currently live in South Korea. I live in Seoul, in Gangnam to be specific. And I wanted to record a video just to introduce a bit more about Korea while I'm still here. Now, this is my second time living in Korea, and I've now been in the country for more than 3 years in total. And so what I want to do in this video is I want to talk about some of the things that I really love about living here and some of the things that I find challenging as an expat. Just waiting at a traffic light for a long period of time. Like sometimes you go to a traffic light and you're waiting there for like, sometimes it seems like you're there for 5 minutes. Like, you know, like you see people hurrying. Here we call it pali in Korean, like rush, because sometimes, you know, if you don't get through the traffic light on the zebra crossing quickly as a pedestrian, you could potentially be waiting there for who knows how long, because it just takes forever to just friggin' for the light to change. And I don't understand why the traffic lights, why there just seems to be such a long interim between the traffic lights. There is so much to do here. There's, you know, it's very difficult to be bored here. You have to specifically be trying to not do anything, to actually not do anything here. There's always cultural performances. There's always, you know, even K-pop performances in the street. You know, you wander down the street, and particularly if you're in university neighborhoods like Hongdae or Iwa, you know, there's, you know, teenagers and young people like in the streets just dancing along to tunes, and there's a crowd of people watching. It's kind of common. And then there's lots of holidays as well, like Chuseok and Solal. At various intervals throughout the year, there's national holidays, and there tends to be a lot of activities that are put on for basically all the locals and all the tourists to just come and hang out and enjoy the cultural kind of scene. One thing I don't like about Korea, and I think that this is not necessarily reflective of just Korea, I think that this is becoming more international, but just you walk onto a train and everybody is staring at their phone. Like everybody, like sometimes, you know, you'll be walking in the street as well, and like you'll have to dodge out of the way of people because they're just staring at their phone and nobody's paying attention to what's happening in front of them, you know, and can be quite frustrating. And it's also, it feels like I'm surrounded by zombies sometimes that are just like, ooh, you know, staring at their phone. Is just like, oh, you know, how can you feel happy if you're all the time staring into a frigging screen? How doesn't that affect your mood by doing that consistently all the time? Like, you know, sometimes I walk onto the train and there will be like everybody that's on one side of the train, on one side of the, you know, in one section of the carriage, everybody is staring at their phone, and if they're not, their phone is in their hand. Okay, one thing that I really like about Korea, another thing I really like about Korea is the access to mountains and hiking, because Korea is a very mountainous terrain, and a lot of the cities are essentially built between the mountains, and so when you take buses between the mountains, there's a lot of scenery to see. Sometimes there's a lot of rice paddies and things like that. There are ugly buildings too, but what I'm saying is that in Seoul, you know, we've got, you know, a nice handful of mountains where you can just, you know, you can travel for half an hour or sometimes an hour depending on where you're coming from, and you can just go hiking. You can wander through nature, and it's really pleasant, and I really like it. Sometimes at particular times of year there are a shitload of other people hiking, but I'm here at Namsangol, Hanok village here on Namsan Mountain in central Seoul, and there's hardly anybody here, and it feels so nice. Anyway, okay. So I feel that as a female, as a younger female, that there's less respect shown toward young women, particularly from older men. And I don't, you know, I don't want to spend, you know, a whole video talking about that one topic. I think that is something that I could talk about for a long time, but I've been in situations where, you know, old Korean men have, you know, just told me how beautiful I am and this and that, like right next to where their wife is, like their wife is there, and they're like, you know, one fellow was like, oh, you know, my wife is fat and she's had some children and this and that, and he's like patting her belly or whatever, and it's just like, no, you know, just why are you disrespecting your wife to flirt with me, you know? Stuff like shoving me out the way on a narrow platform. Some of the train stations have a narrow platform, and sometimes, you know, you get older men that are just barreling their way through, and they'll just shove women out the way, and it's just like, can't you just say excuse me? Like, I've rarely heard the word excuse me in the entire time I've been here. I've probably heard it like a handful of times. It's just not a common word.